Yeah, this is for Keith. Hey, Keith, right over here.
Hey.
You've had such a long, storied career as a broadcaster. Why now step out of that role to take on this sort of project?
Yeah, it's a great question, Adam. Thank you for that. It was not an easy decision, but this is the only team that I would have ever thought about doing something like this. I would not have interviewed anywhere else. I have only done my job on television to do my job on television. I never campaigned to get in a position to take a job like this. I just wanted to do the best job I could in relaying the message to our fans here in Philadelphia on what our team was doing on the ice. When the opportunity arose, I did think about it for about a minute, and that's stretching it. It might have been 10 seconds. The answer was yes. And after a long and grueling interviewing process, it is here now, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Hi, this is for Dan Hilferty. You mentioned about the distribution of roles and the importance of collaboration between the GM and the president of hockey operations. I'm curious, in terms of the organizational hierarchy, is the president of hockey operations going to be above the GM? Will the president of hockey operations have, hiring, firing responsibilities? Is that what Keith's role is going to be?
Yes, I think in terms of the president of hockey operations, they are that person. Keith is the leader of the team. So that would include all aspects of team building, setting a vision, as I said earlier, and also hiring or firing.
Yes, questions for Danny. You mentioned 2 months you've had the job. What have you learned through that 2 months to kind of prepare you as we get into the combine, the draft, and the offseason moving forward here?
Learned a lot, obviously, managing, a front office, obviously. But, I have been around for a long time. I've seen different ways of doing things. I have a great team around me to help me. I think I was fortunate to have seen and been around this organization the last few years to know what areas we need to improve on, what areas we need to focus on. So that makes me feel probably more comfortable in the job coming in. But I'm certainly very excited about it.
Hi, everyone. This question is for Dan Hilferty. Dan, can you just take us into what the interview process was like, how many candidates were up for the position, and what led you to Keith Jones?
Well, the process was an exhaustive one. It really started, we started thinking about it right when Danny was named interim general manager. It was Valerie and myself, I mentioned earlier, the group that was involved. The first thought was we wanted to cast a wide net. That's why we met with a number of search firms, 3 to be exact, and we landed on Modern and Billy King, who's a well-known name here. And we also wanted to have someone who was well-known, very active in the hockey community. We worked with Neil Glassberg to support us in the effort. Modern began the effort of reaching out to potential candidates. We took ideas from many sources, alums, former players, others in the hockey community. And I won't give you the exact number, but it was exhaustive, and the net was wide. We landed on a smaller group that Modern led some interviews with, and then we came to a final 3 that we had a day of interviews with, follow-up interviews, and came to the conclusion that Keith Jones was the best candidate for the job.
Hey, everybody. This question is for Keith. Keith, you bring an interesting perspective to this role. Obviously, you spent the last number of years in broadcasting. What kind of tools and what kind of knowledge have you gained from broadcasting that can help you succeed in this role?
Yeah, obviously a lot in that role. I was able to meet everyone in the game, from general managers to head coaches to presidents, and have conversations with them. Kind of continuing to learn as I went. I also had a view from upstairs for many games and watching players perform, and part of that job is to analyze and recognize what certain players do that you like and what certain players do that might not fit into something that you would be looking to build on your team. Having that insight has been really valuable. the fact that a lot of them are my friends from even my playing days is really helpful. I'm incredibly honored with the fact that my friend group has been very successful in hockey. Craig Berube as a head coach, one of my best friends. Rick Tocchet as a head coach. Joe Sakic in Colorado, general manager, Stanley Cup winning general manager and player. Chris Drury, Tom Fitzgerald, Luke Richardson coaching, Rod Brindamore coaching. I've had an opportunity to not just play with them, and I'm going to forget some people along the way, but I've really been blessed that I've had an opportunity to learn from their character, and they're educating. They're really smart people, and I've really been involved with them for a long time. So, and then from a league perspective, I've gotten to know the commissioner, Gary Bettman, at a different level. He is a tremendously bright man, and I've learned a lot in any discussion I've ever had with him. So I have relationships league-wide, and I think some of those will come in handy in this position. I look forward to furthering those relationships as I get started.
Hi, Keith. Going off of that same question, in the job description, it said you'll be in charge of leading the strategic direction of the hockey operations side, as well as collaborating on the business side. In your experiences as a broadcaster, a player, or outside of that, where did you gain the qualifications for that?
Teamwork. It's one of the most important things, I think, in anything that we do in life. And I always encourage kids to play sports because you learn how to be a member of a team. And no matter what your role is, and whatever level you're at in your life, your role may increase as you get better at what you're doing, as you become a more important person. I want to make sure that people within our organization can grow. I want you to, be patient in your willingness to grow. And I think it's important that you do your job that you're being asked to do right now. And then when it's time for you to advance, we're going to make sure you can advance. But I want people to love working here. And I want that to translate to great messaging from leaving our building when they walk out of here. So I think that's probably something, but the most important thing I think is collaboratively working together. And that's something I've done in every job that I've had in my life, whether I was playing or in my post-playing career in television. I'm quite confident that if you asked anyone I worked with, that's the message that you're going to get.
Val, collaboration being a buzzword here today, how do you see it from the business side? What can happen there for both sides to kind of work together? How do you envision that happening now going forward that maybe wasn't as easy to do previously?
Well, I think it's about partnership, and it's already begun. I actually was just talking to Keith yesterday. We were having some conversations on the business side with the NHL about future marquee games that the Flyers might participate in, be that outdoors or international. And he was the first call that I made to say, how do you feel about this? Are you excited about it? Because we want to be in lockstep on everything. Our marketing campaigns are another example of that. Our marketing personality should reflect the personality of the team and how these guys feel about the vision going forward. And so just in each and everything that comes up on the business side that's relevant to what they're working on, it's going to be my first call. And Keith has told me the same on his side.
I have a follow-up for Dan Hilferty. You had mentioned earlier that this is a model that has worked with other organizations, yet it's still one that's kind of unique in and of itself in the way that you described the roles that you have here. Do you look at it as something that could be a model that other people will then try to follow, as opposed to you guys trying to follow a role that other organizations have put together? Does that make sense, that way I'm asking that?
No, it does make sense. If it works, I hope not. I hope they don't follow it, because we don't want others to emulate what we're doing, although that's not true. I guess I'm thinking about the question you asked Valerie. I really believe this. We all come to any endeavor with certain gifts and talents, and others do as well. And I was thinking, as Valerie was answering, there's going to be times when the three hockey leaders, we don't belong in the room. And so we have to be sensitive and understand that hockey leads hockey. And we on the business side have a responsibility to do everything in our power to support the hockey side being successful. And it's about both understanding our roles and being willing to let others lead when they have an expertise or a talent that can lead us. And I know it sounds trite maybe, but it really has worked for me in other industries. I mean, I'm just a fan, though, when it comes to hockey. I'm the last person you should ask about hockey. But I do know that the most successful organizations in the world are organizations where people band together and understand each other's skills and let each other lead when it's their turn to lead.
This question's for Dan Hilferty as well. When you mentioned about the process, you spoke mostly of the president of hockey operations hiring process. Did you interview anyone else for GM, or were you pretty much settled on Danny? And if you were settled on Danny, what gives you the confidence that he is the right guy to be the full-time GM?
I can only answer from my perspective. When the transition in leadership was going on in hockey, I was simply just trying to find my way around the building. Dave Scott was really great about educating me as he and others were thinking about who's the next leader from a general manager perspective. I got to know Danny. I can tell you from a personal point of view, watching him as a leader, as a well-organized, experienced person in the space, interim tag or not, I can tell you from the first day that we really interacted, I viewed him as the next GM of the Philadelphia Flyers. So the process went on in my head, conversations with Valerie, just watching how he and Torts interacted. We just felt strongly there was no need for a process. We had our general manager.
This question is for Danny. You got a front row seat to seeing one individual be both the general manager and the president. Now having those roles split into two hires, how do you envision that being beneficial to you in your role and being able to focus on the construction of the roster?
I believe in teamwork, just like Jonesy has said. Having someone of his stature come in, be involved with our team, everybody that's going to be part of it. But to add Keith there in the room, I'm ecstatic about. I'm so excited. Just listening to his opinion over the years, having a chance to be around him with some alumni stuff that we've done over the year, I can't be any happier than to have him around there. So I have no worries that it's gonna work. Again, teamwork, having towards his point of view, his point of view. We've said it before. We're not looking. I don't want people around me that are just yes man or yes women. It's including everybody. I want different opinions. I want people to bring their own vision, and we'll come up with the right answer.
This question's for John, kind of following up on what Danny just said. I mean, historically, coaches have always had a seat at the table, but maybe not had as much of a voice. Do you almost feel like you get, working in this collaborative environment, that you're going to get a little bit more of a voice and be heard a little bit more than maybe coaches are used to being heard in this league?
Well, the way I look at this hire, which is just a fantastic hire, both ways. Danny was the GM for me when interim tag or not. We have gone about our business that way from day one. Bringing on Jonesy here, the thing, and Danny just touched upon it. I think what you have here are two strong hockey minds and a personalities not being afraid to shed their opinion in discussions. And I think that is going to be so productive. It may be all five of us at certain times, but sometimes we will tell Dan and Valerie, get out of here. We need to talk about this. And everybody, I think, has the personality to voice their opinion and not just agree along the way. I think that's how you solve problems. I think that's what the process is about. And I'm thrilled. The time I've spent with Danny, I'm so excited to work with him because I think he's got such a great mind. This guy here has followed the league and his job for years, as he just stated, talking to coaches, GMs, understanding players, systems, all that. that is so important to get his view. And we're going to have some arguments along the way, and that's healthy. But to know that we're in it together, I'm thrilled. And I want to make a point, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't get sometimes when, in this process, when people start talking about flyers, alumni, Jonesy, an ex-flyer, Danny, an ex-flyer, what has happened? Why do people think that they're diseased? You know, if you're an ex-flyer, you come from somewhere else, you know, from the organization, that you shouldn't be in this organization, that we need to look outside. I'm not sure who said it here, but it's the person you're looking at. So I'm proud that they are Flyers. I'm proud of these guys over here and other alumni that care about this organization. And that's what thrills me the most. I think we have strong personalities, and I think they care. And I don't get some of the thinking out in this city, oh, it's an ex-Flyer again. They're doing it the same way. God damn, it is so important to have that belief. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait to get to work, and already starting to do it.
John, just sort of a follow off of that. You've been around a long time. Danny's new to his role. Keith's new to his role. Does that change anything for you when you do have that voice at the table where, you know, we talk about rookies and veteran players? It's sort of a similar situation where you're the veteran with two rookies. Does it change anything for you at all as far as when you go into those meetings or have those discussions?
No, we're going to have those discussions as men. Whatever problem or maybe good stuff's going on, we'll discuss it. It doesn't, it's trust. I'm really interested to hear his views. We've already started scratching the surface on a few things of what needs to be done this summer. Danny and I have had some really major conversations on that. You know, meetings, you strip your symbol off. You're talking as men and talking about the Philadelphia Flyers, how we improve the team. Nothing changes as far as those, and I'm sure the same thing they feel about it.
This question is for Keith. Keith, I know you'll be involved with the business side a lot, but I'm sure you'll want to have your voice in the hockey side as well. How much trust do you have in Danny to call the shots, make important decisions, and will you want your voice heard too?
I have the ultimate confidence that Danny Briere is the right man for this job. I have had many conversations about hockey with Danny. What impresses me the most about Danny is his mind. What I'm also impressed with is he stayed here. He selected the Philadelphia Flyers to come play for as an unrestricted free agent. Could have went anywhere in the league. That tells me a lot. What tells me more is he stayed. And that's what's probably something, when I look at Danny Briere, that stands out to me. He wanted to be a Flyer. He put the work in, as Valerie mentioned earlier, to become eventually the Flyers general manager. He's ready for it. I look forward to working with him, and I'm overly impressed with how well prepared he is. And we're going to have a lot of discussions in the coming days. I've been away. I've been working. Danny had no idea that I was going to be the guy. So we're going to get to some real conversations here in the next little while, and I so much look forward to getting to those conversations.
This question's for Dan Hilferty as well. Kind of piggybacking off the last couple questions. Danny Briere obviously, you know, was interim GM, was special assistant to the GM, but doesn't have, you know, a ton of experience in an NHL front office. Was it ever a consideration that the president of hockey operations needed to be someone who maybe had that hands-on experience, or was that not really a consideration in your mind?
Well, I would say I started by talking about the three roles. For me, it was about leadership skills, and it was about getting the best people that would combine with the other two members. So I would say I didn't give a lot of thought to having experience in that role before. Heck, I didn't have any experience in this role I've come into. Mine was more about blending the personalities. I said to Torts at one point, he didn't know who I was, but for a couple of months, I could watch him after games, during games, same with Danny. So for me, it was about finding that person who was the third part of that triumvirate that would make the collective more successful. And I would say in that regard, I never considered what the job was before. I just considered what the three together could do.
Dan, you were very clear that this rebuild will take time, and sometimes things can get worse before they get better. With that said, in a field where people can be quick to move on from a leadership structure, what are you going to be looking at to make sure they are on the right path? And I guess how will you stay the course? How much leeway will they have?
Well, I'm going to say this, that we all are aligned that this effort, this new era, will take time. I'm going to repeat what folks have said. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to be calculated in everything we do, and we're going to be measured about making steps forward. In terms of coaching, Coach Tortorella is going to make those decisions and develop the team. In terms of putting the team together, the two individuals we introduced today will take that leadership role. From a business perspective, Valerie, my job is just to make sure that we are all on the same page, that Valerie and I are doing what we need to do, and that those in hockey continue to work together to move it forward. It's interesting, I thought of another angle on this. We are all committed, and in each of our remarks, to bringing our fan base along, frankly, having a really positive dialogue with those of you in the media so that you can see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that, yes, it's going to be a multi-year process. And I firmly believe, optimistically so, that if we share that with the fans, if we meet them where they are, they'll come along on that journey and get to know our players better, the younger players as they develop. So my barometer for success will be just making sure that we continue to work as a team and that these three professionals working with, I believe, the best leader in sports and entertainment in Valerie, that we are truly moving in the right direction.
Do a few more questions?
This question is for Danny. Danny, any player coming into the league, you ask them what players have influenced them, they'll always give you Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Are there any other general managers in the league right now that have influenced what you want to accomplish as the Flyers general manager?
Definitely. From the time I started playing, I always saw myself more in the management role than a coach. I was always more interested in how teams were being built. I probably started that when I was with Buffalo. Darcy Regier, had an influence. Then I came here and saw how Paul Holmgren was building his team throughout my stay here. Then I went to Montreal with Marc Bergevin, followed there, and we got to the conference final. And I saw how Joe Sakic started his rebuild in Colorado. I was there early on when, probably the second year maybe of his rebuild. So I saw how he was doing it. But I've always been studying that. That's always an area that I was passionate about. I was not doing it expecting to be a GM one day, but that was certainly something that I hope that one day I'd have the chance to build my own team.
Dan, presidents of hockey teams can sometimes be recluse and unavailable to the public. How much of an advantage was it going into this process to know that Keith has the ability, not only in terms of a broadcaster, but doing morning radio to kind of be a face? And how much of that do you expect him to do going forward?
Well, I think that's a great question, a key component of the job. I also think that these three get along so well that they'll be able to work collaboratively in speaking to the public on a regular basis. Where I thought you were going with the question was, how do I view it? And I mean, when we think of, or when I think of a president of a hockey club, I'm not even getting into the ownership aspect. I think of Ed Snyder, and people said to me, "Are you going to be like Ed Snyder?" And my response is, I can't be Ed Snyder. I can only be myself. And I think that is apparent to people I work with is I like being out there. So I'm going to be walking around the arena. I'm going to go to events. My wife got embarrassed 2 weeks ago because we were leaving to fly to California, and anybody that walked into the little waiting area before we got on the plane that had anything that remotely looked like a Flyers garb, I went up and introduced myself. And so I want that to be what we do as a leadership team, both from a hockey perspective and from a business perspective. So I know he's going to be out there. I'm going to be out there too. And I know Valerie's going to be out there, and I know Danny's going to be out there. Torts has a role to
I won't be out there.
he won't be out there.
We're lucky he's here today.
Yeah, we were all excited when he showed up today.
One more question, please.
This is for Keith.
Yeah.
Dan has talked a lot about today the importance of collaboration in terms of hockey decisions. He also said that Danny is going to be making the trades, the signings, everything like that. Where do you see your role being in terms of influencing what decisions are made on the hockey side?
Yeah, a lot of it will be discussions with Danny. I'm here for Danny Briere, whatever he needs, whenever he needs it. I will give my opinion to Danny, and Danny will make the final decision on player personnel, trades, etc. He's going to be on the phone a lot. He's going to be busy, there's no doubt. But I will be there for him at all times. That will be my role. And I would just like to touch on something Dan mentioned, Mr. Snyder's name. This is Mr. Snyder's team. This is the Philadelphia Flyers. We're going to work hard to honor that, to get out there for him. He did a lot for all of us, so we're not going to lose sight of that. That's one of the most important messages you can get from leaving here today.
All right, thanks, everyone. We're going to pause real quickly, do a jersey presentation for anyone who wishes to take photos, and then we'll break off to the side for scrums and one-on-ones. All right, thanks, everyone.